Look at your wounds, not the ones on your skin, but the ones that have eviscerated your soul. Let me spit an ugly truth right in your face to start. You get hurt, not because you're unlucky, and not because people are cruel. You get hurt because you confused being defenseless with being good. You have told yourself a lie for years. You were taught that if you keep your head down, if you always smile, if you sacrifice yourself to make others comfortable, the world will reward you. But what happened? The world targeted the exact spot where you bowed down and it struck. This video is not for the weak. It is not for those seeking pink, fluffy, motivational quotes that say everything will be okay. We are going to perform surgery here, and surgery hurts. If you close this video now, tomorrow you will take the same knife from the same people. But if you stay with me for these 30 minutes, I promise you one thing. You will become a fortress that no one, I repeat, no one will dare to approach without respect. We are going to kill that weak, foolishly nice version of you so your power self can be born. Are you ready? Then listen. Let's start with a story. Picture two men in a high-stakes corporate environment. The first one is Alan. Alan is the story's nice guy. He smiles constantly. When a colleague dumps their workload on him, Alan accepts it because he doesn't want conflict. When his boss yells at him, Alan looks down and apologizes, even if it wasn't his fault. Alan thinks this is character. He thinks this is nobility. The second man is Victor. Victor isn't rude, he isn't a savage, but there is something behind his eyes that unsettles people. When someone tries to take advantage of him, Victor doesn't scream, he just gives a cold, heavy stare and says one word, no. Victor smiles, but his smile looks like the opening of an armory, not a flag of surrender. Now guess who gets the promotion at the end of the year? And more importantly, who goes home every night filled with humiliation and repressed rage to fight with his spouse? Alan. Alan gets destroyed. Why? Because Alan is harmless. Carl Jung, the great psychologist who knew the human soul like the back of his hand, has a terrifying quote. He says, "You are not virtuous if you are harmless. You are only virtuous if you have the capacity for great harm, but choose not to use it." Understand this. If you cannot bite, if you cannot be dangerous, if you cannot say no and tap into your aggression, your kindness has zero value. That is not kindness, that is compliance. That is weakness dressed up in a moral costume. The first law is the law of the armed shadow. The reason people hurt you is that they know it costs them nothing. They know you won't get angry, you won't retaliate, and you will only remain silent. You have repressed your shadow, that dark, wild, powerful part of your psyche, just to be a good boy. But Jung says that a tree whose branches wish to reach heaven must send its roots down to hell. You must wake up the monster inside. You must get to know it. You must know that you can be ruthless, you can be venomous, you can destroy, but you choose not to. That is power. Humans have a sixth sense for detecting prey. When you deny your shadow, you smell like a victim, you smell like blood, and wolves are always drawn to the scent of blood. But when you arm your shadow, when you carry that capability for danger in your eyes, even the most predatory humans will treat you with respect. So from today, stop trying to be harmless. Be dangerous, but disciplined. Let others know that behind that smile lies a sharp sword, sheathed only by your own choice. This is the first step to invulnerability. Don't be a pacifist, be a warrior who keeps his weapon holstered.
Now that you understand the need to sharpen your blade, it is time to address one of the greatest stupidities of the human condition, a stupidity that causes you to hand the knife to others and bare your own throat. This trap is called sacred projection, or the act of idolizing others. Let me clarify this with a bitter, repetitive scenario. Imagine a woman named Sarah. Sarah is brilliant, full of talent, but she has a deep void in her self-esteem. Sarah meets a man who seems perfect. He speaks with confidence, he's strong, and he seems to have the answers to all the world's questions. What does Sarah do? She builds a golden statue of this man in her mind. She places him on a towering pedestal and throws herself at the foot of it. Sarah thinks she has fallen in love, but Jung would tell you Sarah has not fallen in love, she has fallen into projection. What does that mean? It means Sarah has taken all the greatness, power, and glory hidden within herself, qualities she dares not acknowledge, and projected them like a movie onto the screen of this man. Sarah doesn't see the man, he is just a blank canvas. Sarah is worshiping her own potential that she has plastered onto him. When does the tragedy strike? When that poor man, who is just a regular human with all his flaws, makes a small mistake. Maybe he lies, maybe he has a bad day, or maybe he cheats. In that moment, Sarah's world collapses. She is crushed, not because of what the man did, but because the God she created has died. The second law is brutal, but it will save you. No one, absolutely no one, is as big as you think they are. When you make someone an idol, you are effectively telling them, "Please destroy me, for I am nothing compared to you." You get hurt because you expect divinity from mortals. Robert Greene screams this in the 48 Laws of Power. Never put too much trust in friends. Why? Because they are human. Humans are envious, they change, and they are flawed. When you sanctify them, you lower your guard. You open your armor to be embraced, forgetting that humans have thorns. What is the solution? Be an iconoclast, an idol smasher. When you meet someone, no matter how charismatic, no matter how powerful, immediately tell yourself, this is just a human who wakes up with bad breath, has fears, and is full of unresolved complexes. This is not an arrogant look, it is a realistic one. When you shatter the imaginary grandeur of others in your mind, no one can hurt you by disappointing you, because you never had any hope in them other than for them to be human. But wait, it isn't just idolizing others that makes you vulnerable. There is another idol you have built and are worshiping, and until you smash that one, you will always be within enemy range.
Let's move to the third root of your suffering. Have you ever noticed why, when someone criticizes your appearance, or insults your job, or says you aren't respectable, you catch fire? Why do these words pierce you like bullets? It is because instead of being yourself, you are clinging to a mask. In psychology, this mask is called the persona. Consider a successful CEO. Let's call him Cameron. Cameron has spent his entire life building an image, the smart, wealthy, flawless executive. This image, this persona, has become Cameron's entire identity. Cameron thinks this golden armor protects him, but the truth is the exact opposite. This is not armor, this is a massive moving target. One day, in a meeting, a young intern points out a stupid mistake Cameron made and mocks him in front of everyone. Cameron is destroyed right there. He turns red, he stammers, and he falls into a depression for a month. Why? What happened? A kid said some words. The reason for Cameron's pain is that the kid didn't attack Cameron, he shot at Cameron's persona, that flawless image, and cracked it. The third law states, the harder you try to maintain your image, the more you become a hostage to others. You get hurt because you're defending something that doesn't even exist. Your reputation, your prestige, your social image, these are all illusions. War strategists have a principle. If you want to be unhittable,
become the mist. You cannot shoot the mist. The sword passes through the fog and nothing happens. Death of the persona means exactly this. It means burning that mask yourself before others can judge it. If you accept that sometimes you are a fool, sometimes you are ugly, sometimes you are wrong, who can hurt you by telling you these things? Imagine someone comes to you and says, "You're a mess," and you reply with a cold smile, "Yeah, you haven't seen the half of it. I'm worse than that." It's over. They're disarmed. They wanted to humiliate you with that insult, but because you weren't clinging to the image of "I am perfect," their words passed right through you. Identitylessness is the ultimate security. The person who doesn't need to be seen as respectable, the person who doesn't need to be seen as smart, is invulnerable. Let them think you are stupid. Let them think you are weak. What happens? Nothing. They just lower their guard, and you remain in total safety. Remember, wherever you feel pain, look for which image in your mind was insulted. Find that image and kill it. When you kill it yourself, the enemy has nothing left to kill. Now that you understand not to build idols and not to wear a mask, you must learn how to interpret the attacks of others. Because even without a mask, stones will still be thrown. The question is, when a stone comes flying at you, whose reflection do you see in that stone? Yours or your enemy's?
So far, you've learned to drop the mask and stop building idols. But there is still a massive problem. A problem rooted, with all due respect, in your own covert narcissism. Yes, you heard that right. You are a narcissist. Do you know why? Because you think every word people say and every move they make is about you. Let me unpack this with a simple but toxic example. Imagine a woman named Claire. Claire visits her mother-in-law. The mother-in-law gives a side eye at Claire's dress and sneers, "You've lost so much weight. Doesn't your husband feed you?" What does Claire do? She runs a fever for 3 days. She starts a world war in her head. Why did she insult me? Am I ugly? Am I pathetic? Claire took those words like a dagger and plunged them into her own heart. But what if Claire knew the broken mirror strategy? This strategy states the behavior of others has nothing to do with you. The behavior of others is a confession about their own internal wars. That mother-in-law isn't worried about Claire's weight. She is battling her own fear of aging, of becoming irrelevant, and of losing control over her son. She stings because she is in pain. Those words were not a description of Claire. They were a reflection of the speaker's own ugliness in the mirror. The law is this: all people who try to humiliate you are essentially projecting their psychological vomit right in front of you. They are throwing up their own complexes. Now, my question to you is, if someone vomits on the floor in front of you, do you scoop it up, rub it on your face, and cry? No, you look at it with disgust and walk away. So why, when someone vomits their complexes onto you, do you take it personally? From today, transform into a ruthless observer. When someone attacks you, do not go into defense mode. Step back and look at them with the curiosity of a scientist observing a lab rat. Tell yourself, interesting. Look how much pain they must be in to scream like that. Look how inferior they feel that they need to drag me down. When you look at it this way, you don't get wounded. On the contrary, you feel powerful, because you realize you aren't the target. You are just an excuse for that miserable person's emotional release. This is invulnerability. But even if you understand this, there is another trap you set for yourself. A trap that causes you to rot from the inside, even if no one attacks you.
Let's move to one of the filthiest lies we tell ourselves. A lie we have labeled kindness and sacrifice, but in reality is named cowardly transaction. Psychologists call these covert contracts. Let me tell you the story of Ethan. Ethan thinks he is the world's best husband. He ruins his entire weekend to fix his wife's car without her even asking. Ethan doesn't go to the restaurant he likes, he goes where she likes. Ethan always compromises. Inside his head, Ethan has signed a contract. I sacrifice for you, so you must worship me, never get angry, and fulfill all my emotional and sexual needs. Where is the problem? The problem is that Ethan's wife has no idea this contract exists. One day she is tired and complains about something small. Ethan explodes. He screams, "I am such a fool for pouring my life out for you. You are ungrateful." Is Ethan hurt? Yes. But who hurt Ethan? His wife? No. Ethan fell victim to his own stupid contract. The fifth law is this: the world and its people owe you nothing. Tattoo this sentence on your brain. The fact that you are a good person, that you help, that you are loyal, creates absolutely no guarantee that the other party will be the same. Robert Greene says, avoid the unhappy and unlucky, but I tell you to avoid people who are excessively self-sacrificing even more. And if you are that person, cure yourself, because this isn't sacrifice, it's a trap. You are scattering seeds so you can harvest a crop later, and when you don't harvest, you suffer. Tear up these contracts. If you want to do something for someone, do it because you want to. Do it and forget it. If you expect a thank you, if you expect reciprocation, do not do it, because that expectation is your weak point. That expectation is the gate through which suffering enters. Strategic ruthlessness means this: I do good because it is my standard, not because I want to put you in my debt. When you kill your need for payback, the cold behavior of others can no longer freeze you. You are a sun that shines. It doesn't matter if the ground below is a garden or a wasteland. Now that you've learned not to expect anything from anyone, it is time to reach the highest level of power, a place where not only do you have no expectations, but you also have no need for anyone or anything. A place where if everyone leaves, you are still the king.
Let me tell you a bitter truth. Need is the father of slavery. You are vulnerable not because you are weak, but because you want. You want to be loved, you want to be validated, you want them to keep you. Every want is a collar you fasten around your own neck, handing the leash to someone else. Let's go to the negotiation table. Picture two men sitting opposite each other for a vital deal. The first is Rick. Rick needs this money. He has debts, he's stressed, and his eyes are screaming, "Please agree with me." The second is Steve. Steve likes the money, but he doesn't need it. Steve has options. Steve is fully prepared to pick up his briefcase right now, go grab lunch, and forget this meeting ever happened. Who wins this game? 100% Steve. Rick gets destroyed. Why? Because he reeks of desperation. And remember this, nothing triggers the dormant sadism in humans quite like the stench of need. When people realize you are desperate for them, they subconsciously start to toy with you. They reply late, they act cold, they belittle you. Why? Because they know you aren't going anywhere. You are a captive. The sixth law is the law of radical needlessness, or absolute self-sufficiency. This law states, ultimate power belongs to the one who can stand up and walk away from the table at any moment. You see this in relationships all the time. Have you noticed that the ones who cling the hardest get rejected the most, and the ones who are a bit cold, a bit indifferent, are the most attractive? This isn't a mind game, it is a law of nature. That which is easily obtained is deemed worthless. If you want to be invulnerable, you must train yourself not to depend on anything, I emphasize anything, external. You must be so rich internally that the presence or absence of people is merely a preference, not a necessity. Repeat this to yourself. I want you, but I do not need you. If you are here, life is more beautiful, but if you are not, my life is still complete. When you reach this point, no one can manipulate you with the threat of leaving or the silent treatment.
When you are not afraid of being alone, when you are not afraid of losing your job, that is when you become truly dangerous and powerful. Your armor is your lack of need. But wait, needlessness protects you from people. But what about life itself? What if tomorrow you get cancer, go bankrupt, or lose a loved one? You can't walk away from that. You have to stay and suffer. Unless you learn how to eat pain.
Here we arrive at the scariest yet most magnificent law on this list, a law we borrowed from Friedrich Nietzsche, Amor Fati, or the love of fate. Most of your suffering comes from resistance, from screaming, "Why me? Why now? This isn't fair." When the fist of fate comes toward your face, you flinch, you tense up, and you try to escape. And precisely because of that tension, when the punch lands, it shatters your jaw. Let me give you a boxer's example. Amateur boxers, when they see a punch coming, close their eyes and pull back. This causes the blow to land with maximum acceleration. But what do pro boxers do? They lean into the punch. They preempt the impact. Hear the story of Noah. Noah was a businessman who lost everything in a scam. He went to zero. The ordinary Noah, the weak version, would sit in the corner of his house, get depressed, curse the heavens, and view himself as a victim. This Noah gets destroyed because he is running from the pain. But the strategic Noah, he used the law of Amor Fati. He looked the pain in the eye and said, "Welcome." He didn't sit there crying about why this happened. He said, "This bankruptcy is exactly what I needed to shed my old skin. This pain is my fuel." Do you see the difference? The reality didn't change. The money didn't come back. But Noah is no longer a pathetic victim. He is a hero walking through fire. The seventh law says, go out to meet your suffering. When you see pain coming, don't deny it. Embrace it. Say, "I love this fate." When you choose the pain can no longer break you, because you are no longer the object. You are the subject. You are the one who decided to suffer. This is a massive psychological shift. A person who can laugh in the middle of hell and say, "This fire is making me stronger," can no longer be killed by any weapon. People can take your money, take your love, ruin your reputation, but if you decide to love all these disasters and use them as stairs to climb, they are effectively disarmed. They wanted to weaken you with suffering, but they inadvertently gave you power. So from now on, when life slaps you, don't offer the other cheek. Turn around and tell life with a smile, "Is that it? Is that all your strength you have? Hit harder. I am thirsty for growth." Now you have learned not to need anything and not to fear pain. But there is still a half-open gate, a gate painted with the beautiful word compassion, but behind it, an army of parasites is waiting to suck your blood. Have you ever heard the saying, "You must be cruel to be kind"? You might think it's just a cheap cliché, but let me tell you, in the real world, this sentence is the law of survival. The eighth hole in your psychological armor, the exact spot where enemies breach your walls, is not named kindness. It is named stupidity. We call this the trap of foolish compassion. Let me introduce you to the story of Henry. Henry has a friend named Ben. Ben is always miserable. He is always in debt, always heartbroken, and the world is always treating him unfairly. What does Henry do? Henry plays the savior. He sits for hours listening to Ben's whining. He lends him money he knows he'll never see again, and he drains his own time and energy to fix Ben's mood. Henry thinks he is a good person. Henry thinks he is being virtuous. But what is the truth? Ben is an emotional parasite. Ben is the feeder, and Henry is the host. One day, when Henry is in trouble himself and can't answer Ben's call, what does Ben do? He badmouths Henry to everyone. He calls Henry selfish. He calls him disloyal. Henry is shocked. He says, "But I did so much good for him." Henry's problem was that he failed to understand one thing. Compassion for someone who takes no responsibility for their life is a betrayal of yourself. You think you are helping, but you are actually teaching that person that they can stay weak and parasitic because you will always be there to clean up their mess. The 8th law is non-negotiable. Raise the drawbridge. Many of the wounds you bear did not come from enemies who kicked down your door. They came from people you opened the door for because you felt sorry for them, because they played the victim. Strategic ruthlessness means this: I am kind to you as long as you are worthy of it. The moment you smell like exploitation, the moment you smell like victimhood or a parasite, I shut off the valve of my emotions, dry and cold, without an ounce of guilt. Remember, you are not responsible for saving the world. You are only responsible for saving yourself. Every time you said yes to a toxic person, you are actually saying no to your own mental health. That isn't compassion, that is self-harm. Now that you have learned to control your heart and not let it bleed for just anyone, you must learn to disable the enemy's most important weapon, a weapon that you load and hand over to them. What is that weapon? Information. And the solution? Deadly silence.
We have arrived at the 9th law, a law that is nearly impossible for average people to execute because everyone loves to talk. Everyone loves to say who I am, what I want, and what hurts me, and that is exactly where they lose. There is an old spy proverb that says, if you want to kill someone, let them talk first. Why? Because when you speak, you are spreading the map of your soul onto the table. You are revealing where your weak points are, what your desires are, and what you fear. Consider the scenario of Nina and Sloane in a workplace. Nina is an open book. She warms up to everyone, shows family photos, talks about her marital problems, and even mentions she plans to emigrate in 6 months. Nina thinks she is building intimacy. Sloane, however, Sloane is as silent as the Sphinx. She is polite, she smiles, but no one knows anything about her. No one knows where Sloane lives. No one knows if she is happy or sad, and no one knows her next move. When layoffs or promotions come around, who is vulnerable? Nina. Why? Because everyone knows she wants to leave, so they don't invest in her. Because her enemies know her weak point is her home life, so they target that to break her focus. But Sloane? Sloane is terrifying. Sloane is unpredictable. Because no one knows what is going on inside her head, no one can set a trap for her. Humans fear what they do not understand, and they respect it. The law of the Sphinx's silence states ambiguity is power. The less you say about yourself, the larger you appear. The less you explain, the safer you are. You get hurt because you explain too much. When someone accuses you, you start defending and explaining. That signals weakness. The Sphinx does not explain. The Sphinx just watches. From today, practice this. Shut your mouth. Do not talk about your goals. Do not whine about your pains. Let others flail in the darkness of not knowing you. Let them guess. Let them create rumors, but do not give them the truth. Information is the ammunition of war. Why are you handing out free ammo to people who might shoot you tomorrow? When you become silent, you turn into a black hole that no radar can detect, and what cannot be found cannot be targeted. Now you have all 9 laws. Your armor is complete. You have no mask, you build no idols, you have no expectations, and your mouth is shut. Now, in the final section, it is time to connect these pieces and see what this new creature, born from the ashes of the old you, looks like.
We have reached the end of this autopsy. Look in the mirror. If you have listened to these 30 minutes with your entire being, you are not the same entity you were at the start of this video. Together, we have executed that good, harmless child inside you. We have burned the masks, smashed the idols, and sutured the mouths of your wounds. Now, rising from these ashes is something Jung calls the self. Here is the final secret. Being invulnerable does not mean the arrows stop flying. The arrows will always come. Betrayals, accusations, and suffering are constants. Being invulnerable means a transmutation of your substance. Imagine a glass of water. If someone throws a handful of dirt into it, what happens? The water becomes muddy and ruined. Its entire existence is disturbed. That was you, small, contained, and fragile. Now imagine an ocean. If someone dumps a truckload of dirt into the ocean, what happens? Nothing. The ocean doesn't even feel it. It swallows the dirt and remains blue, deep, and vast. The goal was to transform you from the glass into the ocean. When you accepted your shadow, when you realized that you too can be dangerous, the malice of others no longer shocks you. When you understood that external validation is worthless, their criticisms can no longer crush you. And when you learned to need no one, people leaving is no longer the end of the world. You are no longer a leaf in the wind, trembling at every breath of others. You are the wind itself. Understand this. No one, never, can ever hurt you unless you hand them the keys to your soul. And today, we changed the locks. You are the only one holding the key. You are no longer a victim. You are a shadow strategist, one who sees, analyzes, smiles, and walks away. But listen, I am a realist. The nature of the human mind is to forget. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, old habits and ancient fears will try to ambush you again. You might forget that you shouldn't explain yourself. You might forget that you shouldn't build idols. That is why I have done one more thing for you. I have condensed all these strategies, all 9 laws, into a visual war map, a strategic mind map. Consider this your cheat sheet for tough meetings, for emotional battles, and for moments of solitude. I have put the link in the description below. Go there, download the Fortress Blueprint, and set it as your phone wallpaper. Every time you feel like caving in, every time you want to be weak, glance at it to remember that you are not that person anymore. This is your new manifesto. I worship the pain that does not kill me. I do not fear solitude, for the entire army I need resides within me. I do not explain, I do not beg for affection, and I will never, ever allow anyone to enter the temple of my mind with their muddy boots of judgment. Now it is your turn. Listening is not enough. Passive listening is entertainment for cowards. Go to the comments right now and write to me. Confess. Which of the 9 traps was your biggest weakness? Was it foolish compassion? Was it sacred projection? Or perhaps covert contracts? Right. I admit I was caught in name of trap, and today I killed it. Writing this sentence is your first signature on your new contract of power. The world is a ruthless place, but the good news is you are finally ready for the war. Welcome to reality.